Good evening, folks. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think we have a couple of people still signing in, but we have a lot to cover tonight, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Jamie Sherry. I'm Director of Community Development. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us for this midway meeting for the Courthouse Village Midway Small Area Plan meeting. So I also want to thank a couple of people for attending, some of our board members. We have the chairman, Mr. Spoonhour, in attendance, as well as Ms. Lascolette. And we have our deputy county administrator, Joanne Hunter, here as well. So this is the Midway meeting. We did kick off the process back in March. During the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about how we got to where the kickoff is and where we're going to be going after this meeting. But I did want to talk a little bit about the purpose of the plan itself. So the 2035 comprehensive plan identifies both of the major villages, both the Goochland Courthouse Village as well as the Centerville Village, as the appropriate place for there to be any new development, be it residential or commercial, to be located there. As you all know, and certainly we know as staff, there is a tremendous pressure on both of the villages. We get calls on the regular people wanting to do new development here. So that is the purpose of having this planning process. We have a great amount of pressure, but also we want to have that growth be something that reflects the wants and needs of the community, which is why I'm encouraged that there's so many folks here, as well as it for just to be appropriate development. Let's see. So the plan's generally a 20-year plan. I do want to have a couple of housekeeping items. We do have a very, very long presentation, so I'm going to ask that questions be held until we're going to have a breakout after the meeting where all of our experts are going to go to their respective locations, and that way you can ask a question directly to the experts and there'll be plenty of time. For those of you who are attending virtually, we also have this being streamed on Zoom. There is an opportunity for you to ask questions, and the information is in the chat box. The let me see, it's the Courthouse Plan 2022 at Goochland VA is the actual email address that is linked in the chat box. So any kind of questions or comments that you have, please share them at that email and we'll make sure that that gets to the consulting team. At the end of the meeting, we will, not the meeting, at the end of the presentation, we're going to be having a live poll, a couple questions that will be put on the screen as well as on your tablet or smartphone, and you will be able to answer them. If you haven't already, there's a QR code associated with it. You can just go to it. It will not be live until they actually launch it. If you haven't done that or having trouble, let me know while the presentation is going on. I'll make sure you have it. For those of you who are attending virtually at home or wherever you're attending virtually, instead of a QR code in the chat box, there is the actual website, so you will be able to participate from home as well. I do suggest those of you who are at home to have two devices. It works better on a smartphone or a tablet. If you have your computer and you enter the answer on there, you will probably lose the feed and be able to see what the results are. So I think that pretty much wraps up my portion of it. Please make sure that if you haven't already signed in on the sign-in sheet, because there's going to be that email address is critical. If you aren't already on our email list, you'll get notified about any updates on the website and things along those lines. Okay, I'm going to now hand it over to David Hill, and he's going to introduce you to his team.
Thank you very much, Jamie, and we're delighted to be here again tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces, because a lot of you were here at our first meeting. So delighted that you're here again tonight. First, before I introduce the team, I want to make sure everybody knows where we are. We are, of course, we're right here in the center of the town of, or the village of Goochland Courthouse. And the Goochland Courthouse Village is bounded on the south side by the James River, on the east side by Maidens Road, The animal shelter is up here in the northeast corner. Emmaus Church is just outside the boundary on the north side along, I'm sorry, that's on the north side here. And then the final western boundary, Jackson Shop Road, just to give you an idea of the current boundaries of the village. And so that's what we'll be discussing tonight, things within that and inside the village. So first, meet the design team. We're going to, most of us have speaking parts here tonight, and then we'll all be, when we break out, we'll just be at the boards that are our particular expertise. But with me tonight is Aaron Arnett, project economist, and Sean Turpek, also from Arnett Muldrow, graphic artist. And then from Hill Studios, Peter Gerardo, senior planner and graphics wizard, Ross Hamas, junior planner, and our intern from Virginia Tech, Christian Crawley, is also with us tonight. So after we adjourn out to the boards, please introduce yourself. And these folks are here to talk to you personally and in detail about a lot of the things that you're seeing tonight. So tonight we'll be discussing these particular chapters, and it's just important for you to realize where we've been the last 3 or 4 months. We've been working on a lot of public engagement, and Ross will share that with you. Then Aaron will share with you some of the background economics of where we are, and he and Sean will share some of the branding work. And then I'll share with you some of the visual and spatial character of the village that we propose. And then we'll break out and go look at some of that in more detail. So thinking about where we are, we're about halfway through a 9-month process. And those of you who came to the first introductory meetings, and I think some people said to me, well, show us some sketches of what you've got. And we said, well, we don't have anything yet because we wanted to hear what you had to say. So we promised you we'd have some stuff tonight. And I need to set the level of expectation. It's not a finished product, because that wouldn't be nice. I mean, we want you to tell us how it's going. Tell us, I need some more of this. I need a little less of this. We're going to show you a work in progress tonight. So we've been through the introductory meetings, the roundtables, community survey, and then we've done some work on the existing conditions, economics, and tonight we have draft planning alternatives. So tonight's our midway meeting. And then from there, we take your advice and revise all these things, and we'll get into a presentation series in the fall, probably September or so, and then make final plan recommendations in the fall. So we're about halfway through. It's a great time to see stuff because it's all a work in progress. It has not completely hardened yet. So I'll tell you that we've been very impressed with the people that we've met so far on this, and that really some of the public engagement that we've gotten is some of the most extraordinary public engagement that we've ever gotten on any project. We've been doing this for about 30 years. And so I'll let Ross introduce that to you and tell you all about it. And I want you, and when I get back, I want to tell you that we really have been able to use a lot of the things that you've told us to really shape the drawings of what you see, particularly what is a village and how do you keep it that way. So Ross, come on up and please tell us about the public engagement report.
Thanks, David. And as you all know, part of the public engagement is obviously the survey. But we also had a series of focus group meetings, which I see a lot of familiar faces here. You came and joined us in the room across the hall. And all that is what goes into the designs you're going to see tonight. So I'll get all started by saying, about 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, we kicked off the survey process, launching it onto the social media pages and the county website. Ultimately, we ended up getting about 240 responses from you all, which is a great turnaround rate for such a short amount of time. And you may have seen some of these little handouts floating around the community with some QR codes just to point you in the direction of the survey. So hopefully you were able to see those and take it. And those of you who did, these are the little map of the zip codes of those who took the survey. You can kind of see in the we're here. So you can see the majority of the responses were kind of surrounding the village and within the village, and they kind of taper out into the rest of the region. So just a great response rate from everyone. So the first question here was, again, feeds off the last one, getting an idea of you all's relationship to the county. So majority of you live in Goochland County, or at about 40% work in Goochland County. I'm not going to run through every single stat. I'm just going to kind of go through the tops of these because we have a lot to give you tonight. So one of the questions was, what's your overall image of or perspective of the village? And a majority of you do have a positive or somewhat positive feel when it comes to the village. This question right here, please give 3 words or phrases that you feel best describe the desirable character and personality of the Courthouse Village. This is what we call a word cloud, which basically just takes all the responses given, and the ones that were entered the most receive a higher word hierarchy in the word cloud. So you can see kind of things like rural or historic, quaint, walkable, community, mom and pop shops, those kind of things, charming, really give you a sense of the character of Courthouse Village. The next one is similar to that, but it's more focused on the strengths of the village. So you see things like recreation and parks, and again, walkability and the library, all these amenities that help make this a better place to live, safe, those kind of things, attractive. And so the next question we asked is to see what specific places within the Courthouse Village you'd recommend. And we have a longer list. So after this meeting or after this presentation, please come see me if you want to see this broken down. But generally, the top responses were the restaurants and dining, as well as some of the places like the library, YMCA, Courthouse Green, and the courthouse complex as a whole. These next series of questions are all going to be related to the questions that were asked for you to rank. And these are just going to be the top most chosen options for those. So the first question here is, what should be the focus of a strong identity for Courthouse Village? The top responses were promoting local business, a place to raise a family, and promoting community events and activities. The next one here is top rated new land uses in Courthouse Village. Most of you said mixed use, public space, and recreational opportunities. Top rated aspects of the quality of life in the Courthouse Village excuse me, included quality of service establishments, overall local economy, and just in general shopping and dining options and opportunities. The top rated aspects of the built environment of the Courthouse Village included preservation of historic buildings, the most important, highest ranked option chosen, maintenance of homes and streets, and then access to utilities. The top rated aspects to the economic economy, economic environment, it included businesses and services available, dining and shopping options, and attractiveness to visitors. Coming here to the last couple of these, if more housing were to be developed in Courthouse Village, what types are desired? Majority of you, similar to the land use question, said mixed use development with residential, retail, and office uses, as well as single family homes and just affordable, attainable housing in general. The top rated aspects for the design, this is kind of centered around architectural design, included building height and size, building material design, and streetscape plannings and landscape and beautification. A few more here. What types of retail and restaurant businesses are most needed? Majority of you said things like family-friendly restaurants, coffee shops, and family-friendly entertainment. That could be a like an ice skating ring or a playground or a music band show, stage, that kind of thing. What types of services are needed? Majority, I would say more than 50% said medical services are needed in the Courthouse Village. So something to be considered when doing the design and land use planning. Meeting space, a place for senior services. All these things are things that are to be addressed, and what David's going to present to you in a moment. What types of public spaces? This one kind of feeds off the last question, but gathering spaces, place for live music, place for events, and as well as place for recreation and access to water and trails are all really important to you all. So I'm going to pass this off to Aaron, who's going to go through the market report data for you all.
So that is a lot to digest. Again, my name is Aaron Arnett, and I'm with Arnett Muldrow and Associates. We've talked about that public input so far. We got a great deal of information from you all in this process. It's been critically helpful to us. Myself and Sean Turpak are now going to talk about economics as well as the beginning of community identity. And again, all of that data that Ross just shared with you was input into our process for both market analysis, business needs, as well as brand identity and community identity. But just like that, we're just going to hit, just like Ross did, we're going to hit the highlights of the market research. You've seen some of this before. Most of this is new, and there's a lot more that's in this as well. I'm just going to hit the highlights. When we do our breakouts, there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to talk in more detail about that. But first, demographics for the county. This is something I've shared with you before, but just a refresher. Your county over the last 12 years, since the previous census, has had 14+% growth since 2020. That's an incredible amount of growth. You all know that, you see that, you feel that. Other demographic indicators, you have the highest income when you compare yourself to other counties and communities within the region. You also have the highest home values when you compare yourselves to other counties and communities within the region. You're also highly educated, and you're also aging. You're one of the oldest counties within the larger region. Median age is 50, I'm 51, so I'm above that, so I can say that, right? So that's the demographics here. Now, when we drill down into the Courthouse Village area, that's a piece of this. So of course, we can't look at the Courthouse Village by itself. We have to look at it in context with the entire county as well as the larger region. When we look at the Courthouse market area itself, there's approximately 1,800 people or so that live within our study area that David shared with you in the very beginning. It's a very small town, a very small population. However, if we look at the local trade area that is relevant to you all, we're looking at a 15-minute drive time. That's still a relatively small area, but even within that 15-minute drive time that goes throughout the county and goes over to the adjacent county across the river, there's 10,000 people, over 10,000 people that live in that area. That's important because that's what's relevant to the businesses, the employers, the activities that happen here in the Courthouse Village. We're not just that small of a town. We have a much larger area that is relevant to us. Much of our research looks at both our study area, the small area, as well as that local trade area, that 15-minute drive time. So next is housing. I mentioned before you have some of the highest housing values within the region. Some of the numbers, your median value in the Courthouse Village is $400,000. That's pretty high compared to what we typically see, particularly in rural counties. The county itself its median housing value is $484,000. Again, very high. 88% of your residential is owner occupied. That's pretty common in a place like yours. And then 90% of yours is single family attached. Again, that's not uncommon in a county like yours as well. And then finally, your households here in the county are very new. 40% of your households have been built since 2000. So you've got a very young housing stock. Now, when we look at the there we go. When we look at the sort of the real-time market, we look at Zillow and we look at the MLS and Realtor.com and some of those other data sources, we see from Zillow that your housing values, have increased by 11% year over year. The reality of this is we took this number probably about 2 months ago. It's probably much more than that right now. And we will get that information for you, but high values, fast increase in our values. You have a very limited rental product here in your county. That's something that came up over and over in our input. The median rent right now is $1,129 a month. And that sounds fairly reasonable, I think. But when you look at the fact that most of our rental is new, that's going on average from $1,700 to $2,400 a month. So all just indicators. The last indicators of housing that we looked at is what we call cost burden. If you spend more than 30% of your income on housing, you're considered to be cost burden. And when we look at the numbers here, a third of your renters are spending more than 30% of their housing or their monthly income on housing, their cost burden. And then just under 20%, about a fifth of your owners are cost burden as well. That's important because attainability of housing came up over and over again, and Ross shared that with you before. Next is the retail market. We looked at the study area or our trade area here in the village as well in context with the larger region. If we look at our 15-minute drive time trade area, we see that you're leaking, or at least in the previous year, you leaked about $146 million. That means stores are selling a certain amount here within your trade area, and consumers are spending $146 million more outside of the area. That means dollars are leaking. That translates directly to demand. That translates directly to opportunity. There's a number of categories that show opportunity. You can't see this on this slide, but you'll see it in the other room. Food and beverage for grocery. You're leaking about a half of a grocery store here within your 15-minute trade area. Can we support a new grocery store? Probably not right now, but as we grow, we can, but maybe there's other types of products that can fill that gap. General merchandising, you're leaking probably about you think about those. I'm not saying that we need more Dollar Generals and Family Dollars, but only just as a point of context, you're leaking just over about one of those stores here in your study area right now, in your trade area. Restaurants, you're leaking probably about 3 or 4, maybe 5 restaurants. We're going to drill that down more into the types of restaurants as we continue to grow this market analysis, so we'll know what those needs happen to be. Health and personal care, so like drugstores. You're one of the few places that still have locally owned family drugstores. That's awesome, and that's credible. And you've got at least 2 here in the village itself. There's still demand for that type of business. And clothing and accessories is another one of those high-level opportunities. There's a number of other specialty retail categories that show opportunity, but what we're projecting is that you all could capture today, based on current demand, somewhere between 60,000 square feet to 100,000 square feet of new retail space. That's unmet demand here right now. As we've also projected population growth of the next 25 years, that's going to add another level of demand here in the Courthouse Village as well. So that's something that we have to plan for as we go through this process. And then finally, we did look at employment. There's about 20,000 jobs in the county right now. There's about 2,000, so about 10% in the Courthouse Village. The interesting thing here is that we don't often see, but of course, you know your county, you know your community, and this probably makes sense to you all, is you have about 2 times as many people that commute into your county as you do that commute out of your county. We rarely see that, particularly in a rural county, but of course, you know your community, and I'm sure, and I see a few heads nodding, that makes a lot of sense. So that's the data, that's the market analysis. This is a market-based plan, as David mentioned earlier. All of this information is used to inform what you'll see with some of the big ideas and some of the big vision. And that's where we transition into what I'd call community character, of which branding is a part of that. So when we think about land uses, when we think about quality of development, that's absolutely our community character. That's what we want to see. That's how we want to see ourselves grow. But branding and community identity is also part of that. How do we communicate? How do we build tools to promote our Courthouse Village as a great place and a great destination for people to want to come and live, invest, or visit? And Sean's going to share with you very quickly where we are on branding for the Courthouse Village.
Thank you, Aaron. So one of the tasks we were given for this project was to build off of the existing equity of the identity that the county has already established since 2014. And so from their style guide, you can see we've inherited some colors and typefaces that we then built off of those. We refined the color palette down to a little bit narrower of a focus, and we've added a couple of extra fonts to try to build out a little bit more unique identities within the county, but still being able to live happily with the county identity. And so what we wanted to do, as you see here, was take samples from that color palette from the county, use some of the existing typefaces, respect the circular identity that the county has, and build logos that fit within that system, but create unique looks for the villages that we're working with, and then create these destination-based identities so that when people see them, they feel a sense of place for these villages, that there's a sense of arrival, and create something iconic. So we're looking at what the emotions are of the community. And as you've seen, as we've walked through this, and Ross pointed out with the word clouds, we got a lot of incredibly valuable input from everybody. And so we were able to distill that down and hope to kind of figure out what the authentic character is of the Courthouse Village. And so the Courthouse Village is an authentic small town, quaint community. The Courthouse Village has unique history on display by the historic courthouse and architecture. Courthouse Village has great access to the James River, one of the country's most historic waterways, which is very underplayed. It's also the center of government, education, and activity of the county. So it really is that focal point where people, gather. It's the heart and soul of Goochland County and the place for all of Goochland residents to come together, to gather, celebrate, learn, and be active. And so, that's why we feel like the Courthouse Village is the heart of Goochland. So here you see the courthouse rendered in the circle lockup, but with the water flowing under it for the James River, just showing that connectivity using some brighter colors and with some of the additions that we made there. And as you can see with the typefaces that we've chosen, being able to use those in different configurations. But as always with an effective brand, you want to be able to make sure that it's functional in different colorways and single colors so that it can be printed, embroidered, whatever the community needs to do with it. But beyond that, also finding ways of utilizing it, environmental graphics and expansions. And so looking at possible ways for doing wayfinding throughout the community. If you're coming into Goochland County, the county identity would be there, but as we get to the character boundaries of the character district of the village, we want to let people know that they're arriving and creating a sense of place by utilizing those colors and putting the logo at the gateways, and also incorporating the county brand on the wayfinding signs as well. But then we get into a little bit more playful things where we get to take that toolkit and look at how we can reorganize the typefaces and the colors, still using the circle, still using that water form of the wave, but being able to update the identity for the farmers market. So as people continue to experience this identity from the gateway of the county into the character district of the village, all the way to the farmers market, they see that sense of consistency with an identity, and they feel that connectivity within the community. And even as they travel along, being able to see that in other environmental graphics, whether it's updating the water tower or putting colorful banners down the main corridors that can act as traffic calming. These can also be used for promoting events. And there's a lot of different ways and reasons to use the banners. And this is, as we've mentioned, sort of the halfway point. We've met with the team today to discuss ideas. We've got a lot more things that we want to do, but we want your input on making sure that this is the right direction, and would love to hear your input on other ideas that you have for events or environmental graphics that you'd like to see in the community. So I believe I'm turning it over to David.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, so the next part of this conversation deals with how do you absorb that need for growth for commerce, for medical facilities, for all the things that Aaron mentioned, and even, maybe in future housing, and not lose that character of a village. So that's what this next conversation is about. And as you'll recall, this was our compass when we got started. This is the map that was approved already in the comprehensive plan and generally provided not only the boundary, but the land uses that might be expected, even where potential roadways could go. And it seems to be sort of densest along Route 6 in the Main Street area, with a new kind of cluster of density up here near Fairground Road, and then a sort of lighter density as one gets out to the edges. And I tell you, when we took this commission, we do a lot of urban planning. We do even a lot of what we call town planning, which is different from urban planning. And the idea of a village, I heard it when you were here a couple months ago, and we've heard it over and over a number of times in a lot of the different feedback mechanisms. And what it's done for me is kind of sent me back to sort of look at what is a village. And one of the there's obviously distinctions between a village and a town. I mean, a town has its own government with a mayor and things like that. A village doesn't. But what's more important for us, I believe, is that a village, especially the way that you all have described it, has an extraordinary connection to the countryside just outside. And it can be the natural countryside, or it can be the managed countryside. These horses are just a couple hundred feet from Main Street. There's an extraordinary connection between a village and the area just outside. So what we tried to do, knowing that you really want to keep that, is to look how you could cluster things in ways that continue to have that relationship. So it's hard to describe. I can say it 100 times, but it just stick with me for a few minutes and I'll show you some examples. So what we try to do is at every sort of gesture that we make here in the physical design of the place is that part of village making. And so I'm going to show you a number of examples, and each of them may contribute some idea to this. And then when you put it all together, you hope you've made a village in the end. One of the things that we found kind of interesting naturally is that there is an extraordinary, some people might call it a floodplain, but it's a valley that goes all the way up through here. Remember, Maiden's Lane is here, Main Street is here, or River Road coming through town. And there's a great big valley on the eastern side of Goochland Courthouse Village. And what's also cool about it is it connects the two big parks, the one here by the James River and the other new sports park up here in the northeast end of the village. So that's going to be something that you'll see we might take advantage of. Another thing that you'll see, there's sort of a whole educational district here in the Northwest that might continue to grow as an educational district. And the community college is right in here. You'll see that continue to grow and thrive. And then you'll see a number of land uses here that started with the original land use plan that you saw developed by the county, but we've sort of looked at it in a little bit more detail down through here as to how it might grow and prosper. So I'm going to show you a couple of diagrams now. We call these sort of village making diagrams. The first one is all great villages are well connected and through roads. And so you see the gray roads are on this map, but the pink roads are ones that are just sort of easy connections to make it better. For example, River Road comes down and is your main street and then continues on toward Richmond. And then Fairground Road continues out to the east. And there's currently in plan a roundabout and just a connection here. That's a really easy one to make the village better connected. But you have a brand new subdivision here on the southeast side. And there needs to be a way to connect it better out here into the school. It's just so easy. And then there are a number of smaller connections that you'll see that just kind of connect the dots. One of them that you'll see, and I'll show you in more detail, is you have 3 subdivisions here, out here on the eastern side. And in order to get just to downtown, you got to jump in the car and go all the way around. And why can't we find a way to connect these 3 in so it feels more like part of a village? So the first part's connectivity with a car. Another one is connectivity with people that may not want to drive a car. So a good series of greenways and bikeways is really important to a village. And so what you'll see here, this is the center Main Street or River Road, and you'll see loops like a greenway system that loops around, or another one that loops around. So you have connected series of greenways and walkways. Another one of these village building elements is some of the things that Sean had already talked about. For example, a gateway to announce each place you're coming in. Welcome to Courthouse Village. And then we take some of the system that you've already got started on Main Street and continue it with the lights, the sidewalks, things like that, each direction. And then these places that Sean was starting to show signs, there's special places where you announce, welcome, the courthouse is this way, the school is that way, for example. And then finally, these 2 green squares here are going to be really important in a few minutes. These are village greens, or public active places that people were requesting in the public engagement piece. So I'm going to take these sort of elements of village building and just show you some design examples of how they could play out. Now, I got to tell you, even before I click the thing forward, I'll click one forward. Each of the things that I'm going to show you is just a concept for our conversation. I don't want you to go back and tell the county planners, now David promised to build this. That's not what I'm doing. It's a suggestion of what you might do. Okay, so just so you know that. So I'm going to take you through, first I'm going to show you a series of aerial photographs, and then I'll show you how, if you were a village planner, you might go about adapting to that. So this first one here, Fairground Road, Sandy Hook Road, and this is the area where you're going to get your new roundabout. And you can see some ball fields here on the south side of it. We're actually here in this building here tonight, and a little commercial area north of it. And then there's this property over here with a great big couple of lakes, which is kind of hidden back in the woods. And so one of the village building principles is, use some of those resources, like use those lakes that are there. There have been a number of people that have suggested, well, we need better retirement facilities. So we just started to plot, what if you could take that piece of land and could you adapt it to something like that? So this is just an experiment. We're not suggesting that landowner do it. But if you did do it, the retirement homes tend to have a series of larger apartments, which could be tucked into the cove there around something like a lake. And they tend to have smaller cottages, which could fit on these ridges out to the side. And so if you're going to do something like that, it would fit very nicely back in there. And what makes this cool is it's kind of very easily walkable to something like Food Line, which is right there. Rescue Squad's right close by. And it fits into a potential greenway system that might go up through that valley that I was talking to you about a minute ago. So these are just some of the beginning of some of these ideas. Now, also you notice with these black colored buildings here, this is the proposed roundabout. And I want to zoom in and show you this area a little bit more detail. That area, it's most of it is owned by the county. And at this location, I'm standing here at the rescue squad looking west across some of the area. And in just a few weeks, that roundabout will start going under construction right over here. This is a very developable piece of land. And it's actually, it's flat. It's got all the things that a lot of developers would like. It's got utilities. And if you look over a little bit to the left of it, This is Fairground Road. There's a great big old grove of trees just to the left of it. And then if you go just south of where the roundabout is going to go, there's a area that has just been paved. That's a county parking lot, and there's a skate park there, and there's a ball field there that won't be able to be used as a ball field once the extension of Fairground Road goes in, because it'll take the outfield. And then looking across from it is the existing farmer's market with a great big tree. So how could you take this sort of existing conditions and do something really creative with it that makes a better village? So let me orient you a little bit. Here's Fairground. Here's that circle. Sandy Hook Road goes to the north here. And so this is the ball field that'll be removed. You'll see Fairground Road continuing off here to the west. And so this is a really important piece of commercially viable land. You know, the idea with one of the ideas with the roundabout is to build better real estate value for the things nearby. And so that's a possibility there. Then this whole county piece here on the northwest side has potential for some buildings in here. And, you know, if you look at the village building principles, you would orient the buildings toward the road, tuck the parking in behind and kind of hide it. Even the rescue squad has potential for a couple of potential larger additions on adjacent to its great big parking lot there, and maybe a building between Food Line parking in this cluster. But if you took that idea of that small roundabout and said that's going to build value, and then you took the group of trees that's about an acre to its south and east and said, let's just multiply that idea so that you could actually make this a civic square and leave the trees, then you'd have an even bigger value for a bigger piece of real estate, like a town square, right? But in this town square, you leave the big trees. This would be sort of like a square around a forest. And in the center of that, you might place a small pavilion or maybe even a band shell. So in the evenings, this thing could have a lot of lights under the trees, and you could have music out here. So all of a sudden then that even builds better value for these buildings. These might even have hospitality value. And this great big tree that is your current farmer's market sticks around because you develop parking back behind it. So this is just one idea of how to incorporate and build the village. Now over here, back to this topic, remember that parking lot we looked at? This is a Parks property. They still have one ball field here. They have tennis courts that I think they're working currently on some ideas to turn into a really cool skate park. You have another ball field over here. So the last piece of this, you might think about something like a spray pad or a ice rink or something like that could be still Parks and Rec oriented, and then some kind of small commercial piece that would be, you know, still oriented toward you got to get something to drink after you play all these different sports, you know, and just sort of it's a combination, sort of a place to watch all the sports from. So think about that. So here's a way to look at that. Here we are in Google Earth looking at that particular spot. You know, here's Fairground, here's Sandy Hook, here's the Food Lion. And then if you sort of sketched in the idea of how that could grow and be a real contributor to the community, there's that grove of beautiful trees we want to keep in the middle. You see a little band shell under there. You see 2-story buildings over here. This could potentially be commercial first floor, multi-use, could be office second floor, potentially a good place for the medical professional kinds of things near the rescue squad. And you see this kind of pavilion and sort of recreational features, hotel, maybe another hotel, great big tree left, and parking tucked back behind the buildings. So that's just one idea of how you might utilize this north square and capture some of that demand and not have it sprawl out. And by the way, there you see the sort of larger forms of retirement village back in there hidden, behind the trees and around the lake. So, this is just one of the many sketches that we do to kind of show these principles of village making. Another one that we observed, and you all showed us this, and I don't know why I haven't picked up on this before, but in your village, and then we went and looked at a lot of other villages just to make sure it was not just here. But as you get out of the village outside, the buildings tend to be set back from the road a lot. And then as you get more and more and more into the center of the village, they get closer and closer and closer to the road. So people brought that to my attention. This one's more toward the middle of downtown, buildings set right up on the sidewalk. So you think about that as maybe starting to have some design guideline ideas where you go ahead and set the size of the road and you go ahead and dedicate parts of it, especially for parking. And then you go ahead and dedicate places where the sidewalk should go. And then you require additional parking in the back so that the street is full of people and not full of parking lots. And so just to prove it, I mean, we started with little aerial photos out here. This one's just about a block south of where we are along River Road. Houses set way back, and then you get a little bit toward the courthouse, and they get a little closer, until finally the buildings are right up, right up on the sidewalk as you get to the courthouse. So that's one of the cool village building principles that we want to keep and put into the design guidelines, so that you do keep that sort of green buffer everywhere. Now, one of the other cool things that we've noticed, because it's done here and it's a great example, is how do you turn a house into a business? And this is the coolest one ever, because it still keeps the form of the house, but this one's super cool because inside is like this amazing market of all things built locally, from pins to magnets to little wrenches, dog collars, paints, and hundreds of other things. But it's like this amazing tiny business full of a bunch of other tiny businesses. And so you've got a lot of, if you want to absorb some of that $100,000 of commerce that Aaron was talking about, and you don't want to sprawl out all over the place, you've got a lot of other buildings that have potential to accommodate that kind of stuff. So, you think about this one, could potentially be a little restaurant or coffee shop or something where you use that front yard space. You can have outdoor parties and all kinds of things on it, still keeps the building set back, transforms the interior use to more commercial things. And then as you get more and more into your downtown, closer and closer to the courthouse, you start to get more infill opportunities, but with buildings that match the existing buildings, right? So that it all fits and it feels like a village. So there's one example. Here's another where you kind of take the cues of this. And what we discovered was, it's amazing in Goochland Courthouse Village, and this is unique, there's so many one-story commercial buildings. And I was told later, well, there used to be two-story buildings, David, but they widened the highway and took them all. I don't know, but there are a lot of one-story commercial buildings. Enjoy it. Not every village has that. So we developed guidelines to help people do that. Okay, now, one thing that you have in common with your village, which a lot of other villages do have, especially in Virginia, is over the years, the road has gotten wider and wider and wider. And this is a pretty wide road for a village when you think about it. And in fact, I was a newcomer to town, and I just pulled up and parked my car here because it didn't have any no parking signs. And actually, immediately, a whole bunch of cars stopped behind me, and actually somebody got out and said, "Hey, is your car broken? Can I help?" I said, "Oh no, I'm just parking here." And we're like, "Oh, okay." So it's not really obvious that you can park here. Maybe I was breaking the law. I don't remember, but it seemed like to me there was a lot of room to get by. But it's not clear. And so one idea is, in a village, you make that a lot clearer. In fact, you go ahead and build some infrastructure that makes it clear that you can park and that people can get by. We call it a road diet. We put that road on a diet, and you can bring in some more green, and we don't need the enormous wide road there everywhere. We can we can create places to park and have the open street. So that makes it even feel more like a village. So you've probably been wondering when I would get to the courthouse. This is your historic courthouse right here. Great church just across the street and the Ford dealers over here. And so, as you know, there are plans for the courthouse to expand. And that happens in a lot of places we work in Virginia. And so the architects have advanced just a real early concept plan for how the courthouse might expand. Here's the existing courthouse, and they have some plans for how things might expand. So we put those over top of our aerial photograph and just got thinking about a few things. One is that if you could take that new proposed building here, I'm gonna back up and look, that's a new proposed building. And maybe just, oops, sorry. And you just could slide it back a little bit, because I think what you may want to do is get any new courthouse building kind of at the same depth as the old courthouse building, just out of respect for that beautiful old building. It would create for you a potential square here. Now, what you've got, there's an existing courthouse square here, but that courthouse square has got the war memorials on it and all kinds of other things. And it's sort of sacred ground. You don't want to go dancing around the courthouse square. It is a very solemn place. But in order to generate a little bit more business activity downtown, maybe there could be another square. So that's this proposal. There's your courthouse square. This might be a market square. And so think about that with, the church is just across the street. And, imagine that as part of a green sort of incorporated into it. And this is standing on the sidewalk of the church looking back. And just imagine some of this being turned into a green. Here we go back up to the outer space. We start to look down. And then you start to see the buildings filled in and around there. This is the existing courthouse. This would be the new courthouse. And then this would be a great big town green. And you see Farmers Market Arcade built around that. So it could really increase some of the activity. This is an existing building that's already on the courthouse. These are already. So it kind of increases some of the lively activity there. Could really be kind of cool. Okay. I messed around with everybody's land on this idea. This is a community college plan. And as you know, you're lucky to have a community college here in Goochland Courthouse. Beautiful piece of ground. And hosts the YMCA, and they have a very ambitious growth program, and they've been a terrific community partner for you. And so to orient you, here's the main campus of the community college. Here's that swale I keep talking about. Here's Main Street, and we are in this building. And then here's the YMCA right here. And so as the Y grows, it's going to continue to grow on that corner right there. And this document tries to show an organized plan that would be a partnership between the community college and perhaps other people that would build out certain parts of it. And it could, especially if there were incubator uses that could potentially be private sector and could potentially long-term either stay private sector or become part of the community college campus. And so in a lot of campus planning, these are the two existing academic buildings. You go ahead and make a quadrangle, and then these over across from it could be potentially new buildings, either private sector or someday long-term potentially part of the college. There's another opportunity for a little liner building here, another opportunity for a building here, here, and here. All these potential partnerships between the community college and private sector, public-private partnerships. The other thing that you could start to do with the campus is to show where you could do some cottage housing. This is the idea of some community colleges across the state are getting into cottage housing themselves, but in your market, perhaps that's a private sector venture that could long-term become part of the college grounds. And so these show tiny cottages, smaller cottages that would be we would say attainable price that could be built on those lands and fit really well with the look of the community. So You gotta make your village, each corner of the village has to convey that message back. So Southern Gateway, you think about that and how long-term with your great Tucker Park, River Road, potential roundabout in the long term to introduce people to Maidens Lane and to River Road on through the town. But in this case, you don't develop it for a lot of commercial use. You develop it as a sort of a forested gateway, because you start your greenway in Tucker Park, bring it across, and then up through the swale. And then thinking about a couple of other village making ideas. And remember, these are just my ideas. I've not talked to these landowners, but one of the ideas that we keep getting as we come into Courthouse Village, either from the north or from the west, these enormous fields that are right out there, and they're flat. This is from a mouse church looking south, and at the very gateway of this village, and you think, if you really believe those word clouds that Ross showed, the field and that kind of agrarian view is really important. So how could you take those lands and suggest ways to keep the fields? One might be if you could take the typical density that might be associated with the development and pack it back toward the back out of view, in fact, back in the woods here, then you could have a little neighborhood commercial, and you could have the same amount of houses, and you could keep the giant fields so that everybody can enjoy those on the way in. That's how you build a village, especially the ones that you've described. This is just an idea. So think about this. As I've had the great pleasure to walk a lot of your village, and when we think about it, you think about these kind of scenes, you think about these kind of roads. It's an extraordinary place that really, I understand why you love it so much. And then when we get over on the eastern side, near Maiden Lane, it almost feels like it's not even a park because it's not connected. That's where you see some of the newer subdivisions and even the fire practice facility over there. And so this map, again, I keep coming back to this, seeing from outer space this swale that goes all the way up through. Here's Maiden Lane, here's Route 6 and downtown. So the idea, is can we connect some way through there without taking any houses or anything like that? And I believe you could. I'm going to zoom in a little closer. Remember, this is just a concept. It's not a proposal. So these you have a number of subdivisions that kind of back up to this idea. And this takes 2 or 3 sort of long shaped lots, connects them through to an existing right of way to come right out here to River Road. And then it actually allows development of a lot of these other kind of hard to get to parcels that are back in between. So I might actually have potential. So remember, some of these principles I'm showing as examples here. They can also work in other places, but just to get some of the ideas out. So next part of this, we've been able to take what you've told us and get pretty far. And after we leave, we'll be out in the room. You come talk to us about what you like and what you really would rather not see in your village. But Ross has a little bit of a surprise to show you here, to get a couple of answers that you can actually vote on, sort of a new way to do democracy in village planning. So Ross, if you want to come up and explain how this works, we will, everybody please pull out your cell phone, and if you would like to do that and participate with us here, if you don't have a cell phone or can't make it work like me, you're welcome to come and see these boards in the room afterwards. So Ross, let me turn this over to you. Show us how to do this.
Yeah, again, as David said, you can either use your phone to scan it or go to the URLs you see there, polev.com/Goochland. And you should see something telling you that to wait. So I'm going to allow you to take it. Is it showing up for everyone now if you're on there? On your phone? It is? Okay. cool. And it's hard to see on the screen. It's just because of the
There you go.
yeah, there you go.
You can see, the images better on your phone. for
Yeah,
sure.
much better on your phone than here. So let's get some voting going.
And you may be able to allude, David, as to what, like, maybe from a design perspective. What,
That's okay.
okay.
Yeah, so the first.
You want to give away too much?
Yeah, first question is, which of these images represents what you think is the right density for the center of Courthouse Village? So everybody get your vote in. This is gonna measure them, and we're gonna use this to develop some design guidelines. So every vote counts. That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
So is there a way to tell how many people are voting, Ross? Like number of people voting?
Yeah, we'll keep it open for
Okay, okay.
another.
Has everybody
30
had a
seconds
chance
or
to
so.
vote? Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay, so how can you tell when you voted? It turns blue. Okay, so when you voted, it turns blue. And then we'll go on to the next questions. Everybody had a chance? Okay, wait one more minute. Looks like a runaway. You better get those votes in.
and
I'll try this
and
on,
if your phone's not working, we will have these on post reports.
yeah, so you can
after,
vote there if you like. Okay. Okay, Ross, want to go on to the next question?
Yep. Okay, so the next one is what types or which of these do you believe best represents certain housing types that could work in Courthouse Village? You'll see a range from things from single family homes to quadplexes.
Just a vote for one, is that right?
Yeah, that's what
Okay, everyone
allows
just vote for one.
Yeah.
Okay,
your
the
favorite.
one that really most represents.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Everybody had a chance to vote on that one? Okay.
Okay. No worries. Yeah, I kind of look at, see everything. Yeah. Yeah, he's running away with it.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Ready? We'll go on to the
Well, and
next.
this next one's a little different. It's less of a visual preference and more of we've kind of alluded to this, but we have not been able to have this kind of open-ended conversation all together in a room. So I would love to hear y'all's responses as to what types of businesses or activities you feel like are most needed in the village. I think I've made it to where you can respond multiple times. So just have at it, put in anything you want. And we'll start to see the results.
Cool.
pop up on screen. Yeah, we're probably gonna see a ton.
Look at that. Okay.
I was kind of scroll up and down so you guys can see.
Y'all are all better spellers than they were.
Does your phone do spell check for you? It gets it all.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, these are great answers. Well, you're getting a better skate park. That's coming. Medical, saw that a lot in the survey. Yeah, surprisingly, that was one of the top survey responses. Yeah, this was on the top. of the
Which
list.
one?
Dry cleaner and laundromat.
Yeah, dry cleaner.
ADA accessibility, that's
Yeah.
great. Parks for entertainment. A lot of activity oriented spaces and
yeah.
also retail oriented
I love
spaces.
Okay.
And a lot of these actually we're seeing that we haven't quite gotten to see in the surveys. So it's interesting this is kind of another way to parse those things out. You guys took the opportunity to come out tonight. So it just takes it to the next level of we really need these things. So appreciate you all continuing to answer these questions we keep hammering you with.
Okay, last question, Ross.
All right. And the last one works a similar way as that one is if you could change one thing, this is kind of our closing remark. If you could change one thing in the village, what would it be? Some of you could say nothing and it's perfect as it is, but the change is coming. Accessibility. Bypass.
You have it blocked if they say get rid of those consultants, right?
Don't have it. So let us know.
We'll do that, shut up. Okay.
Cohesive. Public road
Yeah.
access and parking.
Yeah.
Higher density. Safer roads and trails to get people to and through the village. More walking paths, uniform design, private owners. Attainable housing,
Okay.
it's a great one.
Excellent. So maybe just leave it open for a
Yeah, I'll leave
second,
it open.
and then
Just keep on.
Jamie can give us a wrap.
Great. So while y'all are finishing up, I know that was a lot of information. So now is your opportunity to break out, go to the different sessions. We have in this room over here, we're going to have our branding and our economic folks going to be back there. More boards than were presented. So please take the time and go and read. Then we also have the what is it? The branding? No, the Oh, yeah, so, and Ross alluded to this, we do have the public engagement, all of the details that came out of the survey we have handouts that you can look at. So if anybody's interested in the exacts of the survey, they're there. And then across over in room 270, for those of you who are familiar with the building, if you're not, it is the conference room as soon as you leave to straight ahead, not Joanne's office, but straight ahead, where Ross will be, David and Ross will be, David and Peter will be over there with all of his pictures. So it gives an opportunity there. I also want to note that this was being recorded. So the presentation along with the slides and the boards that are out there that were not part of the presentation are all going to get posted on our website. And so on our website, please go visit it regularly. We'll notify you by email if any changes or any substantive changes are made on it. So please make sure your email address is on the sign-in sheet if you're interested. And we want to hear what you have to say.
Please give us your feedback. We want this to be your plan. This wants to be reflective of what the community desires. So, we came up with some big ideas. Some of you may love some of them, some of you may hate some of them, some may need to be tweaked a little bit, but we can't do that without your comments. So please make sure to hit all the rooms, but particularly 270 across the hall that talks about what the form and design looks like. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you all very much for coming.
Perfect time too. Let's see how many responses we got here. Looks like we got